Joining us, singer, political activist Annie Lennox, alongside Dr. Helen Pankhurst, whose great-grandmother Emmeline led the suffragette movement, which helped gain women the right to vote. So, I mean, you have it in your, literally in your blood, don't you? What is feminism to you?
Well, for me, it's about the sense that the world still is unequal in terms of the position of men and women in society, and that we still need to do something about it.
When you say unequal, what is the inequality?
Where do we start? It's inequality in terms of social norms, attitudes about where men are positioned and when women are positioned. It's about institutions that reinforce that. It's about women's own sense of where they're positioned. What
do you think of the Australian broadcaster putting all women on their show this morning? Some people are calling it a man ban. I argue that we so often see lineups just of men in business or in politics, that this is a way of challenging that.
Yeah, you know, we need symbols of change, and that's what exactly that is. That's what International Women's Day is as well. And organisations come together, or individuals think of initiatives to say, well, have a look at what it would be like if we had a different world, and that's exactly what that's doing.
Now, Annie, you have said that Donald Trump may actually be good for the women's movement, for the cause of feminism. Explain why.
Well, I did preface that with inadvertently. That word inadvertently seems to get cut out of the headlines, but obviously everybody's asking me about Donald Trump. That seemed to come up such a lot. And actually, I think one of our challenges as feminists is to get the platformers to have attention even on the issue, because for years and years it was really even hard to use the word. I went to an event a few years ago where I was standing, I was getting an award for something. It was a women's lunch, and very special lunch with all manner of women from all walks of life, and in a very feministic kind of celebratory moment, I stood up and said, please, let's all stand up in solidarity and let's celebrate being feminist. And half the room stood up while the other half sat down. Now, that showed me that there's a difficulty with that word. And I think that what's happening now is that we're really trying to figure it out. What is feminism? What does it really stand for?
I mean, I've wrestled with this a lot. I've written columns about this, which attract a lot of attention, whatever.
We wrestle with it a lot.
Yeah, but for example, I mean, there's one example, when I saw Kim Kardashian, for example, doing the bird-flipping topless selfies to 18, 25, million followers she has, many of whom are impressionable young girls. And she does it in the name of liberating and empowering women and feminism. To me, that can't be, or shouldn't be, what feminism is. Well, am I wrong?
I think that's Kim Kardashian's version of feminism.
Right.
It's not mine, by any means, and it's certainly not Helen's.
Right.
I mean, but, you know, the thing is, with social media, if you say something critical about anybody, especially somebody that has millions of followers, you kind of start off a pointless, rabid kind of war going on. For me, if I might say, because of my absolute commitment to this issue, and after all my visits to developing countries, I've been to Malawi, I've been to Southern Africa, all these places, courtesy of Comic Relief, Oxfam, wonderful organisations like CARE are deeply involved in the basic things, like trying to get girls access to primary school education, trying to get girls and women access to safe ways to deliver their children, sexual reproductive health, never mind equal pay. So we're talking in a bubble in the Western world. The developing countries for girls and women are not even at the first rung of the ladder.
Take the Women's March, which happened, you know, very soon after Donald Trump got inaugurated. My issue with that was not that there were lots of women marching for women's rights, gender equality, pay and all the rest. I totally subscribe to that. But when I see Madonna, you know, one of your music colleagues, standing on a stage in Washington saying, I dream of blowing up the White House, and I know immediately as a journalist that will be the headline, that's going to be frustrating, hasn't it?
Piers, listen, I am the great-granddaughter of Emmeline Pankhurst.
Yeah.
That idea... The idea that well-behaved women who just say quietly, oh, we'll change things in our, you know, time will change things, that doesn't wash. Now and again, people have to use more forceful arguments.
Yeah, but hang on, you can't say you've been dreaming of blowing up the White House.
No, I haven't.
How does that help anybody?
What I'm saying is that within the feminist movement, you have a whole range of views and attitudes, and by just picking on the extremes and saying the whole thing is no good, that doesn't get us anywhere. I've spent a lot of time in Ethiopia, and I just wanted to come back to the issue of international feminism. So I work for Care International, and I live half my life in Ethiopia. I can tell you that today we have girls who suffer from FGM, we have girls who suffer from early marriage, who stop their education because they're forced into marriage. And unless together, collectively, as a society, globally, we say, come on, we can do better, humanity is better than this.
Wouldn't it also, I'm sorry to jump, we're just running out of time, but Annie, wouldn't it also, and I said earlier, that the 5 most powerful people in Britain right now are all women, which is a great thing to celebrate. And it seems to me that one of the ways, of course you need to protest, of course your great grandmother was a remarkable woman who trailblazed all this. We can all totally sign up to that. But again, I mean, I'd ask you, when Madonna does that, and that's the headline, that's got to be frustrating for people who were marching not because they want to blow up the White House.
It's part of the, this consumer cycles, news cycles, obviously. You're going to get a headline like that, and it's actually very often going to create ripples of negativity for some. Other people are going to be really riled up. And this is part of the challenge. I think it's very important for us to consistently put the positive message out about women's rights and actually what's happening. When you talk about FGM, when you talk about child brides, sexual slavery, so many things, and then we get other kind of confusing messages.
But also to celebrate great achievement. I mean, that quote from Oprah, that the best answer to sexism and racism often is excellence.
Yes.
One more point, though. Men. In all of this, we so much need to have men and boys on board.
Exactly. We're here to be helpful.
We're so grateful that you are able to have this discussion with us. And I did hear you say earlier that you actually described yourself as feminist.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, wow, what a transformation, because I don't think you would have done that maybe a few years ago.
I totally agree with that. I do think it's really important. But to bring men, I think, with you on this, I think it's got to be less hostile, often against men.
I agree with that.
I agree, but you also need to understand that some women's experiences will position them somewhere else.
Yes.
We also globally need to understand that without men it won't change. We won't tackle racism if we only have white people talking to each other. We won't tackle sexism if we only have women talking to each other. I agree with that.
Fantastic discussion. Great to see you on International Women's Day.
Wish we had more time.
Well, you know what? Come back again. This won't go away, this issue.
No.
It's going to be an ongoing thing. I think it's really important to have these debates. I'm not sure everyone's completely clear of the right answers.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think that having the debate in a sensible way
Even
is the right way.
feminists aren't clear whether what the right answers
are. This gives us a chance to even have the dialogue. So thank you for having us on the programme.
Join us on the march next year. That would really be testing.
I'd come on the march.
That would be amazing.
I would love to do that. And I'd happily be one of your speakers, celebrating women around the world, and why not?